I'm in Japan right now visiting family, and such a while walking through Tokyo recently, a old difficult memory came back to me that I thought might be pretty interesting and perhaps helpful for those of you with a ambitious career and dreams and aspirations, and but also have a family of your own. So for me, from a young age, as back as high school, I've loved Japan as a country, its culture, language. I was very genuinely curious about their society. So serious that I dreamed of living and working in Japan someday, but not just live there for the sake of living there, but actually build a meaningful life and successful career from a young age. And I've had my eyes on Sony because back at that time when I was younger, Sony was a huge deal, right? I was a huge Sony fanboy for the longest time. I had every PlayStation. I had my first laptop, which was a Sony Vial, if some of you remember that. I've also had a music player was from Sony. My headphones today are Sony. I dreamed, how cool would it be if I could work in Japan and make some of the coolest electronics that the world was using everywhere around the world in the coolest country. That I thought it was amazing. So I studied Japanese from high school, studied how to read, write, and speak. And when I got to college, I took Japanese classes, and where possible, I would try to write my notes for all my other classes in Japanese. While walking home from class, I would always practice and memorize in my mind new Japanese words every single day. I made Japanese friends and practiced conversations. I got pretty good. Enough to convince my Japanese wife to marry me. So, good job, Chris. Building my career, every career choice I made was to get me closer to that goal. I got a master's in computer science. I worked in a Japanese company here in Hawaii, worked up the ranks to leadership roles. So honestly, I had a pretty solid resume. Then an opportunity came up at Sony here in Tokyo for a project manager role in their headsets division, which is pretty awesome, pretty cool. And I applied, and when I applied, I just knew that they were going to call me for interview. And they did. And when the interview happened, right off the bat, it felt pretty amazing. It felt right. The interviewers were interested in me. I was interested in them. We were laughing, joking, knowing more about each other. Making jokes about the country, about the Sony and ourselves. They liked how I was a Sony fan, and my appreciation for Japan, their country. I had high confidence I was going to get that second interview, and a month later they reached out to me and I did get that second interview. And when that happened, they essentially said, Chris, we're not expecting a person of your experience to come our way, so would you be interested in doing more for the company, to take on different types of projects and initiatives for the company? And I was like, of course. I was their guy. This is what I was working myself up to. So at this point, after years since I was a teenager to an adult, my efforts to learn Japanese to build my professional background has led me to this day. And I got that offer to reach my dream of living and working and having a satisfied career at Sony in Japan, a large, well-known company and at a respectable position. And the deal was pretty good. They would cover the cost to move there, and I would work in their Shinagawa building. It all sounded pretty great. But then, there was one problem. You see, Japan's employment culture is quite different from America for a variety of social and economic reasons. And when I got the official offer letter, the compensation was about 7 million yen base salary. So if you assume the yen and the US dollar are on par, so 100 yen equals $1 US, then that comes out to be about $70,000. In USD. So for Japan, that's pretty decent, definitely higher than the median income, but realistically, with a family, that was not going to work for me, at least to live a life that isn't always on a strict budget and a life that I would want to provide for my family. So, and even with the relatively cheaper cost of living in Japan compared to the US, it still would have been fairly tight, and I know I'd have to, really be careful what I was doing. And I knew all this going in, so I expected a lower compensation relative to what I was earning in the US and intended to negotiate, which I did, and I was able to get a better offer that got me closer to 90,000. But when you look at the details, I really could only really reach that if I worked the max overtime, which honestly wasn't too bad. I really was already working long hours here in the US, just by choice, because I wanted to. I was that kind of person, and I was always of course, like I mentioned earlier, working to build my career. But say hypothetically I did take the job and I just grinded, putting the hours and work up the corporate ladder as fast as I efficiently and possibly could, just like how I was doing here in the US. Well, that still really wouldn't work quick enough because of Japan's deflationary economy. Any pay raises would be at most about 3% at most, assuming I hit the highest performance rating. So that wasn't looking good because I would be working hard for relatively lower rate of return. So the numbers weren't working out. And if you were single, perhaps, or came from another country where they paid less compared to Japan as a country, then yeah, it would be actually quite a big deal because they were Sony was offering to cover some of the housing costs for 3 years when I chose to stay, but that wasn't really gonna work for me over at either way. So ultimately, I sent an email saying, "Hey, I had a great time speaking with you all, and unfortunately, I declined." And that was it. But the hard part was that all these years since I was young of planning, since such a long time, since high school, effort, my dreams and goals, I finally had my dream in my hands, but I had to walk away from it from a technicality of sorts. And that was quite hard for me. And I think for many people that would be quite hard for anyone else who had very strong aspiring dreams. Because when you have a dream in your hand, and it's just so close, you just have to take one more step to get to it. But then you have an obstacle that just, you just have to, you don't just lose it, but you actually have to make the choice to lose it. That was really, really hard. It was the right decision. I mean, do I still think about it? Yeah, I don't regret it. But I definitely still think about it and wonder what could life had been. But at least where I am right now, there's a lot of good things. I don't think ill and I don't, lose sleep over it. Because I can say that by not taking that job, that path towards Sony in Japan, I have a son who's graduated and working on his own and living his own life. I have a wife and I live in Hawaii, and Hawaii's an expensive place. I can afford to pay for it. I'm close to my best friend and family, and instead of I'm in Japan 4,000 miles away from them, and all things considered, financially I'm in a pretty good spot. Not bragging at that, but just reflecting positively that it ain't all that bad, even though I still do wonder what Sony could have been life. But I still get to come travel to Japan quite a bit more often than I was before, and I am taking a lot more of my vacation time these days, which I'm actually quite happy that I am making an effort to take more time off for myself. And my whole long-term pursuit of my dreams, even though I didn't accomplish that dream, it built me to the person that I became today, and that helped me what I have now. So if you watch this far, first off, thank you. And I think if you've watched this and are interested in my story, you probably are a person that has your own dreams and personal aspirations, ambitions, which I definitely respect, and I would definitely want you to achieve that, especially because life is short, and the life we have, it can move so fast, and I do hope you get it. If you have that dream and goal aspiration, I definitely hope that you're on the right path to making those steps to get what you dream of. But sometimes life just gets in the way of achieving what we want. And when that happens, it will hurt, it will be stressful. You might, toss and turn and wonder, what could have been, but that's okay. That's how life is. Sometimes life just gets in the ways of the things that we want to achieve, what we want, and that's life. This isn't a Disney movie, that not always will happy endings just come. Can we expect happy endings? But things will go suddenly in a different direction, and that's okay because there'll be other things that we can be satisfied with and find happiness with. So keep that in mind. If you're a person out there that's kind of stressed out and wondering if you're right track, just there's always things to look forward to that you can find, even though it might not be the way you first planned it. There will be things that you can find joy in and professional fulfillment with, and before you know it, you'll say, hey, the choice I thought I lost wasn't really a bad choice at all. Right, that's it for me. I'm gonna go find me some sushi to eat. Take care. Thank you.